Going on, everyone? So if you guys followed me on Twitter, you would have caught the bottom to the exact candle. So I don't want to really seem like a know-it-all, but then the day before this happened, I alerted a new video saying how important it was to be absolutely bullish. So as we can see, I alerted this call here literally at the open at the bottom when the SPY was trading at around 411. Now the SPY is at 438 and we're still bullish. So if you guys want to give up on 27-point gains on the SPY because you guys decide to be economists, or because you woke up one day and now you guys decide to be historians, by all means, go right ahead. But if you guys want to make money consistently and get into really solid, safe plays, you came to the right place. So in today's video, we're going to go ahead and talk about what the next steps are for the market. I just want to look at this on a 1-hour chart. Look how beautiful this looks on a 1-hour chart. Look where we are. Anyway, in today's video, we're going to go over the SPY, the IWM, the NASDAQ, the crypto markets, the 30-year bond, and the large tech stocks. All right, so we're going to see how much more room there is to the upside, what the next steps are in the market, all that good stuff. All right, so stay tuned and let's get started with the video. Yeah, I'm just going to keep this tweet here for the entire SPY technical analysis. All right, first of all, we're trading very outside the lower level of the Bollinger Band. Yes, we know that that is a very good sign to take a dip buy. All right, now we've reclaimed it and we had a very, very bullish close. We closed above 434.74 clearly and above 433. All right, so right here we closed above two major levels of resistance. Now the next real resistance is going to be that, like up here at 440. Right, so obviously 440, and then this is at 443.38. But the main psychological level is going to be 440. So we still have another 2 or 3 points to the upside potentially, at least on the SPY. This is also super bullish, the fact that the MACD has not yet crossed above. And the yellow MACD line is pointed downwards. So this gives the MACD so much room to the upside. It means that the MACD can be overbought much longer than it normally would. Because the yellow MACD line is falling, if this blue MACD line starts to really, really show strength, it can just keep on going. And it won't be an overextension to the upside in terms of the MACD because the yellow MACD line is pointed downwards. Does that make sense? So another thing is we still have not yet even crossed above yet. So that is another huge bullish opportunity here, essentially, right? So we're holding on to more calls over the weekend, right? Cool. And if we were to fall and we don't, if something happens over the weekend and, you know, the futures are very, very bad. Right now, at the moment, Russia and Ukraine are about to hold peace talks. But then right before the peace talks began, Russia decided to put their nuclear weapons alert, like on high alert, essentially. So they're getting decimated at the war. And Putin is basically saying, hey, you know, like we have nukes. So that's not a good sign. But if we were to fall, these are going to be the next, you know, these two are going to be the levels of resistance if we fall below, right? And currently these are going to be the levels of support as well. Okay. So really the SPY is showing that there is still at least 2.25 points to the upside. And then 443.38 is going to be this 38.2% fib that we've been monitoring, and that's going to be a very important level of supply and demand. So, and it also actually coincides perfectly with the 20 exponential moving average, which is amazing. So there's that for the SPY. Things look really, really bullish. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the IWM. Okay, so the IWM, like we were looking, this was a huge, beautiful bottom, amazing level of support, double support here. Came back, retested the lows at 188, and we came and bounced off of this very important trend line here as well. So that was just beautiful. Also, we can see that it closed above 201.50, and this was a very, very important level for us to close above. Obviously, 200 and then 201.50 were two very important levels to close above. And now essentially we closed right at this downtrend line. So to reclaim that level for tomorrow, that level is going to be 202.50. And that's currently where we closed. So the IWM, this is going to be the next daily candle, right? And it's going to be at 202.50 exactly. So if intraday we come and chop around here, 202.50 is going to be the main level of support. And then 203.76 is going to be the next level of resistance, which is going to be the 50 fib level. And you can see that the IWM is trading higher currently than the SPY is, because the SPY was just trading at the 3.82% fib level. It decides to load, right? But we were just showing how, see, the SPY has not even gotten up to the 0.382% fib level, whereas the IWM is right at it. So that means that there's going to be more upside potential potentially in the SPY, and then I'm going to show you guys afterward in the NASDAQ as well. Just looking at the technicals now, the MACD, same exact concept for the SPY. The MACD has not yet even crossed above. The yellow MACD line is pointed lower, yet we made a huge rally upwards. It means that the MACD line is going to have a lot more room to the upside before it even becomes technically overbought. So this is some ridiculous bullishness coming out of the market right now. And it's really, really amazing to see, because as all of the things that were happening for the war, essentially, the Fed became very, very dovish. And earlier on in the month, CPI numbers were good. A lot of the things that people were very, very fearful of, the Fed increasing basically, 100 basis points by July or whatever. A lot of those things were just put to the side. So the only thing that just came about that was super bearish was this news with the crisis out of Russia and Ukraine. Other than that, most of the other bearish things that we were worried about are basically subsided until about March. March is when, the Fed is going to start increasing interest rates. And then that's when things are going to start getting a bit, less ridiculously bullish, right? But for now, we might as well just enjoy the ride. So there's that for the IWM. Let's take a look at the large tech stocks, the 30-year bond and the NASDAQ. All right, I'm just going to go through these very quickly. Apple opened exactly at this important level of resistance, 163.76. We closed above, right? So now the next main level of resistance is going to be 166. So you can see that there's still more room to the upside on Apple. And then the next main level is going to be 168.34. So Apple has more room to the upside. Let's take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft has basically closed right at resistance, and it closed, the MACD just crossed above. So usually when the MACD crosses above, there is at least 1 or 2 days, regardless of how bearish, usually when on a large tech stock, essentially like a really large company, when the MACD line crosses above like this, there's at least 1 or 2 days afterward that the stock continues to go upwards. So that's a really good sign. Obviously, if the rest of the market is bullish, Microsoft will, continue to cross above these two levels of resistance, 297.97 and above 390. So, Microsoft still looks pretty bullish as well. Let's take a look at Google. Google clearly held this 2660 level of support, has not yet even crossed above on the MACD. Lots more room to the upside on Google. The 20 exponential moving average is going to be at 27. By tomorrow, it'll probably be around like 2740. Still huge. Like there's still at least another percentage point, at least basically to the upside on Google. The main level of resistance is going to be really at this 2740 level, 2750, right? And then, we cross back up into 28. So Google looks bullish as well. Let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon looks ridiculously bullish. This MACD line looks at least a day or two away before it crosses above. And this looks very, very bullish. The next upside resistance is 3127. Like the large tech stocks look very, very bullish at the moment. So Let's take a look at Tesla as well. Tesla, not as ridiculously bullish as Amazon and the other stocks, right? But you can see that it's barely even moving upwards on the MACD, which is that is scary bullish. Like, that means that there's a lot more explosive potential to the upside. But we need to see if 780 can hold. If 780 can hold, then 830 is going to be the next level of resistance. And then, 900, and then this 20 exponential moving average at approximately like 880. So 830, 880, and then this very important resistance up here at around 925. All of these stocks look like they have a lot more room to the upside. All right, so let's take a look at the 30-year bond. Now that we see the strength in the equities, we have to take a look at the 30-year bond. So before I go into the bonds, as I'm making the video, Bitcoin is basically tanking, right? So I think this has to do, obviously, because Russia is basically threatening a nuclear war, right? So in terms of understanding like urban environment and how the fighting would be in Kiev, I would recommend you guys watch this podcast with Jocko Willink. He's like a high-ranking official in the Navy SEALs, and he basically explains how the Chechens fought off the Russians in the 90s, and the entire war was happening in an urban environment similar to Ukraine. So based off of this war, the U.S. military learned a lot from the Russian mistakes and applied it in, the other countries. So now you have to see if Russia remembers how they fought against the Chechens. And I would really recommend you guys go ahead and watch this really, really interesting podcast. So yeah, they're basically, it's not a good sign that they're threatening nuclear war. It makes sense. So anyway, let's take a look at the bonds. And the bonds also don't really look as great. So this is sort of, it makes sense because the bonds did rally up very, very heavily. And now it looks like it's just consolidating a bit, but it needs to really, really hold these lows here at 150, 120. If the bonds start breaking down below, then it's going to start to look a bit worrisome in the next couple of days, maybe this week, for the equities. Obviously, this initial huge run up can continue on into like Monday, Tuesday, sure, right? But if the bonds start giving back all of their gains, then it's going to say, that this bounce was really not justified. So we have to watch 150, 120. And right now, a good sign is that this yellow MACD line is actually, it's basically flat, right? And even though the blue MACD line is falling lower, it needs to, basically what's going to happen is if the bonds can start moving upwards, this blue MACD line will also start to move upwards. And then this yellow MACD line that shows that the overall momentum of the bonds is stagnant. As this happens, and as this happens, the overall momentum of the bonds will also start to increase. So essentially, that's what we need to watch. And the bonds go up because it is a long-term determining. Basically, when the NASDAQ, when the bonds are showing strength, the NASDAQ also shows strength. So just keep that in mind. And really, that's really it. So what I was basically saying is tech stocks are growth. It's the long-term outlook, long-term growth of the country. So the bonds respond well to tech stocks going. So basically, when the bonds go up, it's basically an outlook of the future of the market, which is the tech stocks, right? So the IWM banking stocks, their value, but tech high growth, their growth. You get it? That's basically the jargon. And as as I was making this, basically Bitcoin is falling even lower. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ and then look at what the hell is going on with Bitcoin. All right, so clearly we closed above these three main levels of support, the 338, 339, and 440.76. Clearly very, very bullish close, right? 347.38 is the next level of resistance. The MACD has not yet crossed above. The yellow MACD line is still falling lower. Same across the board. There's still tons more room to the upside for everything. All right. And then after 347.38, 350 is going to be the next level of resistance. Very simple. And really, aside from that, there's not really a whole much else to talk about. I went over the rest of the market. You guys understand that, you know, from the large tech stocks, from the SPY, from the IWM, things look bullish. All right. But what is really important is we have to look at what is going on with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, you know, it's a good indication of what could happen in the equity price. So let's go ahead and take a look at the crypto market. All right, so basically Bitcoin needs to hold 36,500. And sorry, if we don't hold 36,500, then that could be very, very detrimental to the equities prices. And that would basically mean like a break of support. Sorry, that would basically mean a break of support. And then after 36.5, this very important trend line is going to be the next level of support. And then after that, we're going to end up falling back down to this 35,422 level. It's not the best sign that Bitcoin failed at this 39,600 level. You can see that it had multiple attempts at breaking, but it hasn't been successful in closing above. So if Bitcoin can close above 39.6, that is going to be super, super, super bullish. But until then, especially right now, because Russia is basically threatening nuclear war, you know, it looks like Bitcoin's taking a hit. And 36,500 needs to hold. And this downtrend line for tomorrow is going to be approximately at 36,000. So 36.5, 36,000 are the two main levels of support. And the level of resistance for today is going to be approximately 37.8. And then for tomorrow, it's going to be 37.6. So, you know, as long as we can close back above this trend line, a lot can happen overnight. Bitcoin can bounce off of this support level tomorrow, you know, before 9:30 a.m. Eastern when the market's open, and it can break above this trend line and, you know, it can go on higher. So this move intraday, it's basically, you know, because of the, you know, the nuclear war that can potentially, I don't think there's going to be a nuclear war, but because Putin threatened nukes. Okay. So aside from that, we have to be, you know, we just have to monitor what's going on over the weekend. Over the weekend, especially, like I alerted we're in IWM calls. And, you know, it's worth taking a stab. So there's that. Bitcoin falling like this is actually pretty interesting, because if this level really, really holds, then this whole dramatic downward move would just be an amazing opportunity to just destroy all of the longs, short the crap out of the market, and then buy back cheaper down here and then just bring it on higher. That would be really, really sick. That would be sick if they do that. But that might be the case. So just keep that in mind. 36,000 and 36,500 are the two main levels of support for Bitcoin for tonight. All right. And futures should open in another hour. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Bitcoin's drop like this is going to affect the futures price. So that's how we learn. We have to look at how everything is correlated. Don't just rely on anyone to, you know, learn. Try to look at everything, look at all the moving pieces together, and just adapt to the market. Because at the moment, we're all going through things in the market that we've never really had a lot of experience with. All right. People that have traded through war have not traded through times where retail investors have had this much power. And people like us, essentially, that have traded through times where retail investors have a lot of power in the markets, have not really traded a lot through war. So there's a lot of learning still left to do in the markets. Don't ever feel like because you just started that there's no help or no room for you to grow. There's a lot of room. All right. So just keep your head up, keep learning, Follow me on Twitter. I post all my trades live for free. And have an amazing weekend. I will see you guys tomorrow.